Welcome back to MMAOddsBreaker. Today we got Kevin Casey getting ready to fight Ildemar Alcantara coming up on UFC Fight Night 71. It's a Wednesday night, July 15th. UFC's doing 4 fights in 7 days, right? 8 days. They have,
Wow.
7 days, 7 days, yeah, because it's like the 11th, the 12th, the 15th, and then the 18th, like all back to back to back. It's crazy what they're putting together.
I'm excited about it. I think
Yeah.
there was a point in time where fighters like myself were lucky if we got two fights a year, and now we're able to have opportunities to go out there and shine a little more.
Really, if you wanted to, you could probably put together 5 fights in a year, and I actually suggest that for the newer guys that are lower. Your guys are ranked 10 to 20 or higher. Want to break in that top 10, get 5 fights in a year if you can do it, and not get injured. Obviously, there's injuries involved and timing involved. Sometimes you can't put it together because cards are booked and that kind of thing. Are you a guy that likes to fight 3 times a year, 4 times a year? Like, how much do you like to fight?
I like to fight as much as possible. As long as my body can handle it. I've had a year off.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of time to spend time with my family and kind of organize my life and restructure things, and I'm ready to hit the ground running.
You fought 3 times in 2014, January, June, then July. So you had back-to-backs, and that last one against Bubba Smith obviously became a no contest. Got overturned by Nevada. But why the year layoff between that fight with Bubba and now?
Well, basically I had a suspension that I went through, and after that, then now my time is up. My suspension is up, so I'm getting back on as soon as possible.
That was I knew the result. I'm sorry, I should preface that. I knew the result, Kevin. That was more for the folks at home that haven't been caught up. They didn't know. I knew about the suspension.
Yeah.
But what was it like during that suspension time, knowing, look, I can't do anything until this time is up. That there's nothing I can possibly do serving the suspension until, most guys are like, well, I'm injured. I got to wait and see how it goes with surgery. I got to kind of wait and see how the rehab goes. And then I have a date. You had a finite date. You knew that you couldn't do anything until the suspension was up. And then you got to start like, okay, are they going to let me come back in the week after? Let me come the month after? Like, what's going to happen? So what was it like during that suspension time of like, man, I'm just going through the grind until the suspension time is up?
Well, it was definitely a big learning lesson for me.
Mm-hmm.
It cost my family, money.
Yeah.
It cost me time out of my career. And ultimately, it was a decision that it was not worth the reward. So, it was basically just a big learning process for me. And now, I'm in a position where I see that they're going above and beyond to restructure how they're dealing with the doping situation and the athletes that are cheating, because before it was almost to a point where you felt like it was almost a tool of the trade to come in there and do something if you wanted to succeed. You have some of these athletes who have been in the UFC for over 10 years, and that they've been cheating primarily the whole time. So it almost felt like it was almost a necessary thing to the sport at a certain point to some of the athletes.
Have you been tested yet? Since you've already signed, you're ready to go. It's obviously after the July 1st start date that the UFC came up with. That really started back in June. Have you been tested already?
I have. About 3 or 4 days ago, I received a phone number to call. I was told to report within 24 hours. I did the test, came back. My test is clean. Everything is good. I'm good to go. But it's an exciting time. They're really starting to really go in there and make sure there's going to be an even playing field for the athletes. And that's ultimately, I think, what everyone wants is to feel like they can go in there and not have to be going against someone who is, amped up.
Was it just a urine sample or was it urine and blood when you went in for your testing?
It was a urine sample.
Okay, and then they're testing everybody. They've already came out and said they're testing everybody top to bottom on July 11th. Everybody top to bottom July 12th. Everybody top to bottom July 15th. Everybody top to bottom July 18th. Like it's out. It's known no matter what if you're competing. California Camo is the California Amateur Athletic Association that's recognized by California State Athletic Commission. And a lot of the guys transfer between both. You see a lot of guys like Jason Herzog and Beltran, and of course John McCarthy work both Camo and CSAC. But they're even stating, the referees have been talking about how it's going to change how fights go. Now, guys that you thought before it could get through a full fight because they were on the gas or were cheating, aren't going to be able to. So it's changing how refs have to look at fights as well. Does it change how you look at your opponents now as well, knowing that for sure this guy, no matter what, is going to 100% going to be clean? It has to be clean because he's going to get caught, relatively quickly.
Yeah, for myself, I've always been a gifted athlete. I've always been talented. I come from a good camp. The pedigree and the skills are there. And you have some guys who are just barely making the grade to get by. They may not have the technique, or they may not have the God given ability, and so they're pretty much dependent upon those things to succeed. So I feel like I was in a different I'm in a different situation than that. So going in there and knowing that I'm going to fight someone, we're going to be at equal levels as far as being, both of us aren't using anything. I feel comfortable that I'll be able to rise to the top.
So what's the mood like, at Black House right now? Obviously, we have Anderson Silva. He fails his A test, he passes his B test, so it's like a question of was he actually using or not using, and what's going on. So that's still being hashed out in the athletic commissions. And then, of course, Lyoto just lost. He was kind of in the fight and then got caught and gets beat up by Yoel Romero. So Black House right now is kind of on a weird – I don't ever want to say Black House is on a downslide because it's never true. There's so many athletes that compete there. But it is kind of a weird time. I was in there a couple weeks ago watching the live sparring on a Friday, and I was watching Anderson spar, and I was amazed that he is – if there's ever any question whether his leg is good or not, I can tell you right now there's no question. He was kicking guys in the head. He was checking kicks. He was – blasting back. Yes, he had shin guards on, but there's no fear. You can tell if a guy's got some fear. He had no fear. I saw the quality of talent that's at Black House right now. But it is a weird time for you guys. And you've got 3 guys fighting on the same card. They're all trained together and all fighting together down in San Diego. But from your standpoint, being inside, what's it like being at Black House right now? Do you feel
speaking from my own personal situation, I made a mistake. I owned up to it. As far as Anderson's situation, I definitely feel like there was, something that was mishandled, and there potentially is a confusion going on, which I think they're in the process of clearing up. And at the same time, there's a whole list of athletes there who have never had any issue, who have never been tarnished in any way. So it's unfair to put the weight of my situation or, a couple guys' situation on the whole camp. We have a lot of talented guys fighting out of Black House. We have James Mutasri who's fighting on this card. Alan Joban, who's fighting on this card. He's been taking it by storm. We have Pedro Munoz coming back shortly. So Brian Ortega, who just came back and fought a great fight, and fight of the year potentially. So I think that any time you go through something negative, it's only more motivation for the guys to go out there and shut down the haters. We had some people say some things negative, and they tried to, put the umbrella over the whole camp as to be this or as to be that. But at the end of the day, we have warriors that come out of Black House. We have a talented group, and there's a whole next generation of guys who are coming up and are hungry. And at the same time, I'm part of that as well.
I found it weird that they would take one situation from one guy and put it over the whole camp for Black House. But when John Jones gets in trouble, it's not put over all of Winkle John Jackson. It's just John Jones's issue. It's not the umbrella of Winkle John Jackson. So it's kind of, I think it's because Black House is kind of separated itself out. It's a mystique. It's like a weird kind of aura about it where, you have to be invited to go over there. You've got to you can't just show up and work out. It's almost like it's not very welcoming. And part of it's because there's a lot of Brazilians. So it's like a different culture, mindset that's over there. It's not negative. It's just culturally how they are. It's just if you're hanging around a bunch of Mexicans, and the Mexicans do the same thing. If you're hanging around a bunch of whites do the same thing. It's just culturally that's just the way the situation is. So
it's a little more diverse now.
Yeah.
A lot of different people in there, different races in there. It's opened up a little bit more to more athletes coming in and cross training with us. We have the Russians come over, and we have different guys from different camps. So it's not as exclusive as it used to be, but it is still, at the end of the day, there's only so much mat space in there. So we want to have guys who are in there are going to work hard and push the level up.
Well, let's talk about your opponent. Talk about, pushing hard and working hard. You're 8-3. Your opponent, Alcantara, is 21-7. That's a huge amount of fights compared to you. So you're looking at it like on paper, the casual fan, the casual bettor is going, this guy's got so much more experience. He's got to be able to overtake Kevin Casey. Let's not forget Kevin Casey went out for a year. So there's ring rust involved. There's other problems involved. Like, how do you see this fight? Like, how do you break it down? And what spots are you decisively better at than he is?
Well, first and foremost, like I come from the Gracie background, so that I have a very big confidence in my skills and my abilities. My very first fight, was zero fight experience. I fought in K1, a K1 Olympia event, and I went against Ikuisa Minoa, which at the time I believe he had about 73 fights
Yeah,
to my
it,
zero experience.
it.
That was my
I
first
remember that. That's right. I forgot. I remember
introduction.
that.
That
Yeah.
was my introduction to MMA. I believe my third fight, my third or fourth, I think it was my third fight. I fought Matt Lindland in a main event for Strikeforce. So I think he had over 20 fights at that time.
Yeah.
So there's never any way to really intimidate me as far as looking at someone on paper or looking at someone's video, because I know that at the same time that they may have more fight experience, they have less they have less footage out there to see what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know my tendencies. They haven't seen me in the UFC doing what I'm, my latest resume and my latest moves that I'm using. So I'm relatively an unknown, and I think it leaves a little bit of room for guys to underestimate me.
And it really does, because they haven't, it's easy to get film and tape on people, especially if they're fighting in the UFC and RFA and Legacy, and because now everything's being put on Fight Pass, everything's being put on local, access television, and being put. It's very easy to see people now getting dumped to YouTube. But if you haven't fought in a year, it's like, well, what's he been doing? Like, what's happened for him this year?
Yeah.
What's he been working on? Before he had an armbar, and now all of a sudden he's got an omoplata triangle knee bar. Like, where the hell did that come from? I have no chance to see it because there's no tape on him. It does give you a little bit of advantage, but that time out of the ring also hurts you a little bit because, if I go away for 10 months and don't really have time to compete or don't have time to be inside the cage, the world changes around me. But you are training with guys that have changed, have developed as well, and you've had to develop
Exactly.
But still, do you feel like sometimes coming into practice, because this guy's been fighting, he's had 3 fights to your 0 in the last year, sometimes you feel like you're a little bit behind, not athletically because you're athletically gifted, but technique-wise because he's been in live action, and live action always changes things up?
Not at all. I've been helping in the camps of all the guys from the gym that are fighting. I helped in Lyoto's camps. I've done a lot of sparring with Lyoto. We're going 5 rounds and 6 rounds. I've trained with top level training partners. So like I always have someone that's there to push me and always there to make sure that I'm evolving and making sure that I'm not doing the same things that I was doing 3 months ago or 4 months ago. So I feel like at this point, Frank, that every 2 to 3 weeks I'm getting better.
Okay.
And it's almost a little, I don't want to be arrogant about it because there's a pack of wolves waiting for me as soon as I get back in the gates. But I feel very confident about going in and jumping into that top 10 as soon as possible. I feel confident to step in on a fight on 3 weeks notice and give anybody a run.
See, that's Kevin. Let's end it right there. That's Kevin Casey, the King, getting ready to fight Ildemar Alcantara. UFC Fight Night 71. July 15th, of course, on Fox Television, down in San Diego. If you're local to San Diego, Southern California, get your ass down there and go watch this fight live. This is a fight card that's worth watching live. Frank Mir, Todd Duffy, the main event. It's an incredible card. I can't believe the UFC has put together 4 cards in a row that are going to be this strong, with yours being the 3rd one in 7 days.
I agree.
I agree. After, man. It's incredible. And really, to my knowledge, the only hiccup that the UFC has had, I could be wrong, and I'm sure when this interview airs, people are going to start yelling at me and texting me and emailing me, telling me how much of an idiot I am. But the only hiccup that they've had is that Jose Aldo is out, and now it's got to be Mendez and McGregor on July 11th. But other than that, the cards have been intact.
And even at that, Mendez and McGregor, they're selling this up in two days, and they're selling it.
Yeah.
So I'm tuned in.
To me, that's the better fight. To me, that's actually the fight I wanted to see first anyway, to find out the true number 1 contender. I feel like the McGregor leapfrogged over Mendez. He should have been in there first. But now we get to see it anyway. It just worked out. The way the stars aligned and it worked out. Every card, and from the top to bottom, these cards are all amazing. And props to Joe Sylvan and Sean Shelby for getting it together and keeping it together as matchmakers. Kevin, props to you. We haven't spoke publicly or privately since now, so I'm doing it publicly. Congratulations to you for standing up and going, look, I did it. It was my fault alone. Nobody else helped out. I did it on my own. Give me my lumps. Let me walk away. that is a true of a real martial artist. Standing up for your, when you make a mistake, standing up for it. Most guys don't do that. Everyone else is trying to pitch it off to somebody else. You stood up and as a man and did it manly, in a sport where a lot of the men turn into women, in the middle.
Yeah.
No knocks against the women. I'm not trying to, but I'm just trying to point the example that we do definitely turn to weaker when it's always somebody get caught for something wrong. We try to pass it off. You stood up as a man, and I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you, brother.
You got it, Kevin. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great rest of your training camp, man. And I'll be at home watching you on TV for sure. Can't wait for this thing to happen.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Let me shout out my sponsors at Ruka and also Max Fitness, for supporting me. And just look for the fireworks. July 15th, King is back.
Take care, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right.